There are a lot of people who despise country music. I used to be one of them, in fact. But if there's one album I could recommend to get somebody to change their mind about the genre, it would be 2023's Weathervanes by Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit. Right on the cusp of a divorce, and over 25 years into his career as a musician, Jason Isbell managed to write a fantastic record front to back, filled with gripping stories of heartbreak and beautifully lush instrumentation. Let me take you on a journey as I explain the stories inside of Weathervanes, and just maybe expand your musical palette a little bit. Well, before we dive headfirst into Weathervanes, I need to give some context about who Jason Isbell is. Born in Green Hill, Alabama, to teenage parents in 1979, Isbell has pretty much always been involved in music. He learned the mandolin around 6 years old and played both trumpet and French horn in high school. The first milestone in his career as a musician, however, was joining alt-country legends the Drive-By Truckers at age 22 in 2001. He was with them through 2007 and especially gained acclaim for the title track of their album Decoration Day, a song about a true intergenerational family feud that he experienced. He worked on a few solo albums after that, but didn't see much success until his 2013 album Southeastern. This was the album that put Isbell on the map as a country and Americana songwriting machine. His progressive stances and choice to focus on storytelling like the country singers of old, while also bringing elements of southern rock into play, as well as, of course, his elite storytelling abilities, present in songs like Elephant and Yvette, gained him acclaim amongst critics and fans alike. Since then, Isbell has worked on various projects and has been a mainstay in alt-country and Americana, inspiring notable upcoming artists such as Waxahachie, MJ Lenderman, and even some more prominent names that you might know, such as, unfortunately, Morgan Wallen. Wallen actually covered Isbell's signature song Cover Me Up, which remains Isbell's most popular to this day. After the Morgan Wallen racial slur debacle, Isbell donated any money he made off Morgan Wallen's cover to the NAACP. Dialing back a bit, in 2009, Isbell also started to release music alongside a backing band. This would cause some albums to be released as Jason Isbell solo records, i.e. this year's Foxes in the Snow, as well as the aforementioned Southeastern, and some albums to be released as Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit. One of them is the album I wanted to talk to you before I got sidetracked with exposition. Whoops. Anyways, now that we've got all that out of the way, let's dive into Weathervanes. Weathervanes comes out swinging with lead single Death Wish. This song intricately builds up a sense of tension sonically, while describing a romantic relationship where our narrator finds his lover is suffering from a deep depression. The lyrics demonstrate the conflicting emotions that come from knowing the person you love feels a sense of hopelessness and that there's no true way you can remedy it, as much as you'd like to. This brilliantly sets up the themes of the record overall, tension within relationships primarily romantic or familial. Instrumentally, Isbell wanted to be adventurous with this track. There's a full string section backing him up here, as well as the usual members of the 400 Unit playing into more of a post-punk style. For this song, Isbell has cited influences from The Cure to James Bond themes, with steady drums playing off-kilter patterns and overlapping vocals towards the end. The themes built in this track continue through with the second track, King of Oklahoma. In track 2, we open with a desolate, Wild West adjacent guitar riff, leading into more of Isbell's signature storytelling. On this song, Isbell shows his expert use of defying songwriting conventions. Most songs you hear will have a verse, maybe 2, before a chorus. This track takes 4 before it gets to the first chorus, which instrumentally seems to soar unlike the tension-building verses. This means that when the choruses do come, they feel 10 times more fulfilling. Lyrically, Isbell tells the story of how a drug addiction can ruin a relationship slowly, the heartbreak coming at the end when the chorus is switched up. In the first 2 choruses, the narrator describes how his partner would wake him up with coffee every morning. However, in the last repeat, the lyrics are switched to describe him pretending to sleep as to ignore this gesture of kindness. We see a similar idea of failing love and one lover turning their back to another, literally, in track 3. Strawberry Woman, unlike the previous 2 darker sounding songs, feels more pleasant and conventional, almost like something that would fit on an earlier Isbell solo album like Southeastern or Something More Than Free. Although, however more soothing this track feels sonically, the sense of lovers drifting apart is still present. Isbell admits in the track-by-track synopses for the record present on Apple Music that this song was directly inspired by his relationship with Amanda Shires. Shires, an amazing songwriter and artist in her own right, was a member of the 400 unit and married to Jason Isbell in 2013. They officially divorced this year, 2025, with an initially being filed mere months after the release of Weathervanes. Isbell tends to write story-focused songs, relating to aspects of his upbringing in life, with details changed to create a more captivating and engaging narrative. He's been very open about aspects of his life, such as his mom and dad having him at age 17 and 19 respectively, and his strained relationship with Shires, shows in songs like this one. Strawberry Woman depicts a relationship from beginning to end. From the nostalgic honeymoon period and its beginning to the couple's growth apart from each other and eventual split. The refrain of Strawberry Woman sitting next to me and Strawberry Woman with her hand in mine, eventually changing into Strawberry Woman with her back to me over the course of the song, shows the couple's departure from life together. As Isbell states in this song, some time apart might do us good, but it's up to time to decide whether or not that time apart is forever. Track 4, Middle of the Morning, at first was not one I was too fond of, honestly. While I enjoy the instrumentation and Isbell's vocals here are as passionate as ever, I initially found the structure of the track repetitive. To me, though, this feels all but intentional, as Middle of the Morning has been described as a lockdown song. If you're watching this video, it is more than likely you were alive during the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic. It affected the entire world, which of course includes Jason Isbell. On this track, even though there's no immediate indication of romantic turmoil, it is as present as ever, Isbell admits. Once again from the Apple Music commentary, there's this sort of feeling of living under the same roof through the pandemic and feeling so disconnected from each other. Middle of the Morning feels like a state of stasis and disconnect. Stuck in place with loved ones, but ironically growing further and further from them by the minute. On the 5th song of Weathervanes, we get a departure from directly relationship-related songs. It's of course still present here as to maintain the album's concept, but it takes a backseat of sorts to political commentary and anxieties. It is one of Isbell's extremely few entirely political songs. Our narrator details hearing news of a school shooting where the cops, quote, just let the kids die. Given this detail, it is extremely likely this song was inspired by the 2022 shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. As an American citizen myself, I can attest to the fact that we've been damn near desensitized to school shootings by this point. In the 1980s, there were reported 79 school shootings across the United States. In 2025 so far, as I'm writing the script, there have been 118 school shootings this year alone. Understandably, this has raised a mix of jadedness, anxiety, and many other emotions in the public. Isbell, having become a father himself in 2015, paints a portrait in this song of a father terrified to send his daughter to school, for fear that something like Uvalde may occur and he'll have to deal with having lost a child. The second verse especially is indicative of an anxiety many Americans feel every single day in public. It describes a balloon popping in a grocery store being misinterpreted as a gunshot, leaving the narrator on edge. The powerful chorus on this song shows our narrator, voiced by Isbell, pleading to his partner, his government, and maybe even the entire world to give him a glimmer of hope and comfort. Swear you'll save the world, even when I lose my grip. Tell me you're in control. This is all set against a musical backdrop of more post-punk inspired instrumentation similar to Death Wish, with this song even including audible synthesizers, something extremely uncommon to hear in country or Americana. The uncomfortable subject matter, coupled with an expertly shown departure from Isbell's usual sound while still having signatures of the genres he comes from, as well as showing off his amazing songwriting, cements this track as one of his best. When I first listened to this album towards the very beginning of 2025, this song had me captivated. It was unlike anything I had really ever heard. I still struggle now to find comparisons to it. For its pure uniqueness alone, it should be celebrated, and you add the expertise of Isbell as a seasoned lyricist, it's a recipe for success. After such a grand pivot, Isbell gets a little bit more comfortable and cozy with the track 6, If You Insist. Isbell says something in the Apple Music commentary for Death Wish that I feel heavily works for the transition between tracks 5 and 6 as well. I feel like you've hung in there with me through this sort of experimental thing. Now I can give you something that is a little bit more comfortable for your palate, something you're a little more used to from me. This track is classic Jason Isbell genius, something that would fit comfortably on a previous record of his. However, don't get it twisted. He still manages to tie this in with the larger concept of the album and deliver a unique and spectacular song. Isbell actually states this song is from the perspective of a woman, which I had not interpreted beforehand, and frankly I feel a little bit silly for it. The woman talks about frivolous things in an attempt to get with someone before the bar they're in closes. But the person they attempt to pursue is completely disinterested. This is one of the more vague songs on the record, frankly, and is open to a lot of interpretation. Isbell states in the Apple Music commentary that it was originally written for a movie, although he says he forgets which movie in particular, but he took it for himself when they denied him the rights to the master if the song were to be used. Perhaps the song would be more straightforward in the context of the film it was for, but I'm purely speculating at this point. Overall, this is another amazing track. Track 7 is quite literally in the center of the 13-song track list. This is fitting and seems quite intentional to me, as it is in many ways the conceptual centerpiece of the whole record. In fact, this song is so important to understanding Weathervanes that the album cover and name of the record come from the track's lyrics. I am, of course, talking about Cast Iron Skillet. As mentioned forever ago in the introduction, Isbell is a Southerner hailing from Alabama. In the South, there's a superstition that you shouldn't wash a cast iron skillet. Of course, though, you should wash your dishes, especially something you're cooking on a stove with. Isbell takes this piece of incorrect Southern advice and contrasts it with far more dangerous and even hateful beliefs to tell a story. The song begins, "Don't wash the cast iron skillet. Don't drink and drive, you'll spill it." Drinking and driving can lead to extremely dangerous and fatal car accidents, but this line implies the worst outcome of drinking and driving would simply be hitting a rough road and spilling some of your beverage. The first verse of the song goes on to recount the true story of how someone Isbell knew as a kid and played baseball alongside ended up stabbing a man to death and died in prison himself. Isbell mentions placing flowers on a grave, and the line, "Ask the Lord to save his soul, although you know it's too late," implies it was the kid Isbell grew up with that he's leaving the flowers for. He contemplates how someone who seemed so sweet and soft as a child could grow up to do something so heinous as to take a life. The second chorus once again follows up the cast iron skillet superstition with far more harmful sayings. "That dog bites my kid, I'll kill it," and "Don't ask questions, just believe it." In an interview with Up Rocks, Isbell revealed that the subject of verse 2 is also a true story from when he was growing up. A member of his extended family, named Jamie in this song, begins dating a black man. This caused her father to disown her. The final line of the third chorus breaks the cycle of harmful Southern sayings, stating bluntly what happened with Jamie. She found love, and it was simple as a weather vane, but her own family tried to kill it. This line sums up the record in ways I can't begin to wrap my head around, frankly. Each relationship detailed throughout the record, fictional or true, can apply to this statement in one way or another, which leads to an understanding of why the project is called Weathervanes. In the aforementioned Up Rocks interview, when discussing this song and the repetition of "Don't wash the cast iron skillet" as an outro, Jason Isbell shows that this wasn't just a throwaway choice. It was meant to represent how if somebody doesn't break the cycle of harmful beliefs, it'll keep repeating forever. In the South, cast iron skillets are often passed down through families throughout generations, just as bigotry and hate can be. Isbell speaks, "You can tell a lot about somebody from the South by what sort of adages they throw at you. It's not necessarily advice you're supposed to follow. I mean, you can wash a cast iron skillet. It doesn't hurt it. That's a myth. And a lot of these things are myths. Violent myths." After Cast Iron Skillet, we get potentially the most rock-sounding song on the record. However, this uptick in energy sonically by no means demonstrates a happier or more uplifting side to the record's themes. When We Were Close details Isbell's close relationship with the late Justin Townes Earle, a fellow country and Americana musician who, similarly to Isbell, struggled with substance abuse for years. While Jason Isbell has been sober for over a decade as I write this, with his breakout record Southeastern having been a triumph in his journey, Earle unfortunately went through relapses many times until his untimely death of an overdose in 2020 at age 38. In this track, Isbell talks about distinct memories of Earl from their early days as musicians together, as well as the survivor's guilt he now suffers due to Earl's passing. An extremely haunting line comes through in the chorus. "You were bound for glory and grown to die. Oh, but why wasn't I?" Isbell recounts Earl always dressing in nice clothing, even if there was no special occasion. He also remembers Earl showing him kindness by allowing him to sing songs during some of Earl's sets and early gigs, even though Earl was the more popular songwriter at the time. This song is fittingly filled with references from favorite musicians that Isbell and Earl shared, as well as key people in Earl's life. Rex's Blues and Fort Worth Blues are songs by Townes Van Zandt, who Earl was named after, and Earl's father, respectively. I think the part of this song that affects me the most personally is the verse where Isbell hopes that Earl's daughter will remember her father's smile. He ultimately decides that she probably won't, though, as she was only 3 years old when Earl overdosed. This track is a lovingly done tribute to a lost friend and one of Isbell's most autobiographical songs to date. Track 9, Volunteer, is another one of Isbell's story-focused songs. Some facts about it are similar to Isbell's life, some made up. Nonetheless, the emotions that permeate here are felt deep. From the moment this song starts, gorgeous strings take charge of the mix. Isbell then takes charge with lyrics describing an orphan from Chattanooga, Tennessee who sleeps anywhere he can and finds a girl he can travel with temporarily. Ultimately, this song is quite simple in meaning. It's about coming to terms with your hometown being pretty messed up. However, Isbell does take it a step further, explaining that everywhere is sort of like that. You can see elements of turmoil everywhere on Earth because we as humans are a flawed species inherently. The chorus seeps with emotions of an inability to connect with one's place of birth or childhood. "Take me away from here, know I never belong to this place. Wish I could disappear off the edge of the earth someday," Isbell belts. It's captivating in both its depth of meaning and simplicity of words, a skill Isbell seems to have mastered throughout his career. Vestavia Hills is a track that I have trouble placing into the concept of the album, but I love nonetheless. A slow waltz led by accordion and soaring guitars. It details an artist's sound guy who truly believed in the musician and supported him through thick and thin. However, the sound guy has noticed that the artist is unappreciative of all they do, so the crew member is essentially turning in their 2 weeks' notice as to settle down in the suburbs with their family. Isbell tells the story of this song far better than I could in his commentary. "It started as me writing about somebody else, but the joke was on me. I got about halfway through the song, and I was like, I see what I'm doing, you asshole." A riding song that sounds much more pleasant than its subject matter truly is. White Beretta is a song about abortion. Specifically, it tells the story of a man driving his partner to Memphis to get an abortion and the variety of emotions he feels for having had to terminate the child. This song also plays upon religion and the way it can cause more harm than good in situations like this. Our narrator was raised deep in the church and is deeply unprepared as a teenager to become a father. As such, he's conflicted on the abortion. Our narrator is the same age as Isbell is in real life, 19 years old in 1998. This line sticks out to me as confessional. Obviously, I can only speculate. However, mentioning this offhand feels less like world building and perhaps more Isbell admitting this experience is quite true to life, at least to a degree. Nevertheless, true or not, this is a captivating story told with pure grace. This song is probably the hardest for me to talk about on this record. This isn't because it's particularly devastating or hits close to home, quite the opposite actually. This is easily my least favorite of the bunch of tracks provided on Weathervanes. Compositionally, this song is a southern rocker, akin to that of Lynyrd Skynyrd. Lyrically, this song details a father telling his daughter, who is marrying a wealthy, controlling man, not out of love, but because she feels she has to, that, well, this ain't it. While the advice could be fair, he's doing this to benefit himself. This song is the second longest on Weathervanes, clocking in at just over 6 minutes, and a good chunk of that time is self-indulgent guitar soloing, which frankly is a joy to hear. Isbell is a very lyric-focused songwriter, and for good reason. He's incredible at that. Some also forget that he's a spectacular guitarist, and the 400 unit are a talented group of musicians in their own right. Where this song unfortunately falls flat for me is in a way that serves the song well, but defeats replayability for me. The entire song is sung in a played-up southern accent. Obviously, being an Alabama native, Isbell already has a southern accent, However, on this track it is clearly played up as a pastiche to artists such as the Allman Brothers Band and the aforementioned Lynyrd Skynyrd. While it fits thematically, with the father being a deadbeat trying to sneak back into his father's life, it makes me far less likely to listen to the song compared to some of Isbell's other work and even the rest of this album. Still, a spectacularly written song, but admittedly the weakest on Weathervanes, at least in my opinion. Weathervanes closes out with a 7-minute epic, Miles. This compiles all of the themes of the album into one song with spectacular lyricism and instrumentation, as always. Our narrator begins by saying his relationship with his wife has essentially fallen apart when he discovers she has been unfaithful. However, he puts the blame primarily on himself. Then, the narrator talks about his daughter has grown to a teenager. She has become emotionally distant towards him as well. He recounts worrying about her leaving the house alone after getting her driver's license and compares that to taking her to carnivals as a younger child. These first two verses and choruses give way into a building section that explodes into a sonically triumphant but lyrically anxiety-ridden bridge. All the emotional distance in his family life has caused the narrator to lash out at those who don't deserve it, like some kid in a grocery store. A poignant line here tells how through emotionally bankrupt or even abusive relationships, people may block out the problems for the sake of maintaining human connection. Or, as Isbell puts it, in the name of survival, we get used to this. This song closes the album with a final chorus, reiterating how, over time, the narrator's family life has been torn apart gradually. The genius annotation for this final chorus frankly puts it better than I could. The narrator's relationships with his wife and daughter changed so subtly and slowly that he didn't even notice the distance until it was too late. There was never a big incident or a moment where somebody done something wrong, but the page still turned anyways. Overall, the heartache resonating throughout Jason Isbell and the 400 Units Weathervanes is just as undeniable as the musicianship on display. Paired, sliding in acoustic guitars, accordions, and keyboards, all accented by the rough yet relatable voice of Jason Isbell singing excellently crafted stories, both real and fake. It all comes together to create one of my favorite albums ever. When I first sat down to write this video essay script, I knew I needed a hook for people to watch it, so I latched on to the fact that many people hate country music despite it being one of the biggest genres in the United States. This has always irked me because most of the people who say they hate country really just mean the pop radio stuff, but even digging slightly deeper into some of the excellent musicians that permeate the genre, such as Jason Isbell, who get the critical acclaim but not so much the radio hits, it's clear that it has just as much merit as any other contemporary music genre. I understand it's not everybody's cup of tea, but if you found this video even slightly interesting, I hope you give this album a chance. Maybe you'll find an appreciation for an entire genre you'd previously written off. Maybe you already like country and just wanted to hear what album I'd yap about for this long. Whatever reason you watched this video, if you haven't heard this record yet, do it as soon as you can. And if you've already heard it, maybe I helped give you some context to the song's meanings. Thank you so much for watching this extremely long labor of love towards Jason Isbell and his art. I plan to make more video essays and adjacent content on this channel, primarily focusing on music. And I want to use this channel to talk about music that might not be as popular, at least not in music critic and analysis circles, so shine a light. So if that sort of thing interests you, I politely ask that you subscribe. Once again, thank you for watching and have a good one. Bye.